According to Napoleon Hill, quote, "Ideas are the beginning points of all fortunes." We'd argue that ideas are the beginning points of most misfortunes as well. It's no hidden truth that the lifestyle of an entrepreneur is in most ways a gamble. You're risking finances, personal relationships, and often your own mental well-being. Yet it's this big bet that so many smart, driven people are willing to make, and it's a gamble that today's guest was not only willing to make once, but multiple times.
There was doubt of being like, okay, can I handle 2 products? Could we do this? If I look back in my life, that was probably one of the best decisions I ever made. That's every entrepreneur's tip. Listen to the market. What is the market telling you? Because I assure you, whatever you assume is not going to be right in some way, shape, or form.
That's Marissa Limsiaco, first the president and co-founder of Tenavox, and also the president and co-founder of Otso. She's a West Point graduate and an Army veteran. And now, as an entrepreneur, Marissa has spent years in the weeds of entrepreneurial activities like product development, finding market fit, growing sales, and planning for expansion. She's no novice to business and no stranger to hard work, but she will be the first to tell you that there's absolutely no fighting the market. No amount of work will turn passion into dollars if the business model isn't there. But on the flip side, when the market is telling you there is a need, your potential success could be limitless. There are always exciting things happening in the world of small business. The news that grabs the headlines, though, are always the highlights, the overnight successes, the billion-dollar IPOs, the massive exits. But just like your Instagram feed, that's never the whole story. Let's look deeper than the headlines and the press photos. Underneath all of that is the real work building something valuable and lasting. Don't get me wrong, I love crazy success stories and can be drawn into those big flashy tales just as much as the next person. But we all know that what's more important than the destination is how you get there. It's the struggles you have to overcome and the insights you learn along the way that make you who you are. So those are the stories we're telling. It's raw, it's honest, and maybe it's exactly what you need to hear. I'm Hillary Georgie, and this is The Journey. Marissa grew up in Texas, and from a young age, she was curious, imaginative, and eager to do great things.
So I'm a daughter of immigrants who migrated here right before I was born. So as early as I can remember, it was always like shoot for the moon, because that's what the United States is about.
And Marissa quite literally planned to shoot for the moon. She dreamed of becoming an astronaut or a doctor. Her imagination and aspirations were far-reaching, and her prospects in life seemed to be as well. She had drive and focus that could carry her in any direction she wanted, even directions she never would have imagined.
West Point was never really in my purview, to be completely honest, until 6 months before I applied. It was very random. Growing up, I wanted to go to the Stanfords or the Harvards, and I played tennis as a way to think, hey, this could open more doors for me. I'm pretty good, and get a scholarship somewhere. When it came to West Point, the coach had been mailing me, and my grandfather was visiting from the Philippines at this point, and he sees me throwing away this letter. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I don't want to go there. Why would I go there? I probably won't even get in. And he was like, "Please just do me a favor and call that coach back."
Determined to demonstrate to her grandfather that she could at least get into the school, she heeded his advice and applied. It was only then that the true value of going to West Point began to dawn on her. And when she was accepted, Marissa knew it was the place for her. She fell in love with the community, camaraderie, and leadership opportunities that the military offered her. She learned the importance of leading by example and of setting standards and expectations for the team that she led.
I think from a perspective of management, we were set up really well to be like, okay, this is how companies are formed. This is how an organization looks like, and this is where you would fall, and this is how you would communicate and kind of run it. And so I think from that standpoint, that not a lot of people, I realized when I got out, like had the same training of how to be an executive or a leader. You have to have a vision. You have to be able to communicate that vision and motivate people. You have to have goals that are attainable and can be measured.
But as much as she loved the military, after 4 years at West Point and 5 years of active duty, Marissa was ready for a new challenge.
I came to the realization that I knew exactly where I was going to be in 20 years. I knew exactly what rank I would probably land at. I see where my life's going. What else is out there? There's all these other opportunities. And at the time I was in my late 20s, and to transition, I could still kind of like catch up, not knowing anything about anything on this side. But I felt like going to business school would buy me some time to do that full time and explore out there what I wanted to do next.
While at business school, she began helping her cousin bootstrap his marketing firm, and she loved that experience. Business building became her new passion, and it was something she wanted to jump into fully after graduation. But she wasn't without doubts.
You've been being told, for my case, 10 plus years, where you're going to be and what you're going to do and what you're going to wear even. And so it was really overwhelming. And I had a lot of gut check moments where I'm like, is this really what I want to be doing?
And she faced many of those gut check moments after college when building her first company.
Although I don't code myself, I did see from a business standpoint at the time, there's this great profit margin opportunity in hiring overseas developers. And so for me, I went to the Philippines and just coincidentally met a senior Ruby on Rails developer. And I just kind of like put the dots together, and I knew nothing about it, but I brought one of my West Point classmates on board as a business partner, and we were able to get contracts. I remember like starting my first client and I was like, I don't even know what to do. I have a contract in front of me and I don't know how to scope anything. I don't even know what scope was.
Her company was a service company that built MVP products. It was a great first experience, but it wasn't without its struggles. Marissa even had to go so far as to sell her car to make payroll during a particularly stressful time. After a while, Marissa was ready to work on something new. A business where she could build her ideas, not someone else's. She jumped into another venture with another academy graduate. This time, the experience taught her a valuable lesson in market timing, but ultimately also didn't pan out as planned.
At the time, it was, holy cow, starting a business is super, super hard. And there's a lot of sacrifice. And I had a lot of self-doubt. I think from that perspective, it was just kind of felt like a loser. And I look back and I'm like, those were such valuable moments. I just ran out of the runway that I'd set for myself personally and needed to make a jump.
By this point, Marissa was ready for a taste of something more steady. She took a job at the Veterans Affairs Office as a program developer. Unsurprisingly, it was a position that was too slow-paced for her. And just as discontent with that career choice began setting in, the next opportunity presented itself.
My co-founder now, Josh Feinberg, who I've known for over 20 years at this point, approaches me about this problem he's having as a commercial real estate broker and why we can't develop a solution. I will never forget. I said, I will consult you and I will point you in the right direction, but I'm never going to do startups again. I'm out. But when we started pulling the thread on the problem and kind of testing out different solutions, I was like, okay, this is super interesting. And I saw that the market could be ready for it. And this is a really big problem that we could solve.
After the break, Marissa shares the founding story of Tenovox, what it's been like working with her co-founder Josh, and how Tenovox eventually led to the founding of her current company, Otso.
It takes a lot to grow a business, but one thing's for certain. You've got to have a laser focus on the customer. That's why we use Salesforce Essentials at Mission every day. With Essentials, your small business has access to the same CRM tools driving results for some of the most successful companies on earth. Think Adidas, Amazon, T-Mobile, Toyota, Intuit, Marriott, and tens of thousands more. Track your business health by measuring sales, emails, customer satisfaction, and custom metrics. Go to getessentials.com/thejourney to start your free 90-day trial today.
Encouraged by her old friend Josh Feinberg and excited by the new project they were calling Tenovox, Marissa pushed aside her self-doubt and took the leap back into entrepreneurship.
Data in commercial real estate is really hard to come by. Good data, as opposed to residential. There is no Zillow, there is no MLS. And my first business, I experienced this firsthand, looking for an office space and not even knowing how much to pay. And so that's where we started was, can we come up with some sort of algorithm, even though this information isn't readily anywhere, frankly, or consolidated anywhere. In fact, most people like to keep it to themselves in this industry. Can we do an algorithm that actually predicts it? And if we do, and we tell people how much they should pay, will they come?
Not only were they able to build out a working algorithm, people began to flock to their platform. There was just one problem: monetization.
It took us a while to figure out customer acquisition. I said that we were able to attract tenants and users to the site, but they didn't pay. And so the challenge was, how do we sell this to a group that may see us like similar products or may even think that they don't need us? And so it took us 2 years almost to figure out our product market fit, essentially, on how we would sell. I'll admit, looking back, the thing that kept us going despite running out of money and not having product market fit right away was this whole challenge of, I want to solve this problem. This is my vision. There's a whole year we didn't pay ourselves salary because we ran out of money. And I'm married, and my wife was always like, why are you still doing this? You work more than anybody else I know, but you're not getting even paid for it. I was just like, I knew deep down we could figure out how to sell it.
It was 2 long years of iteration, testing, and pivoting, trying to hone in on the business model for Tenovox. They focused on raising money to help keep the company going while they worked out ways to acquire new customers. And it was one conversation with a prospective customer that gave Marissa a new idea.
After a conversation I had with a customer that actually turned us down late 2018, he just mentioned something about deposits. And then just coincidentally, that same week, I talked to one of our users who was finding a space, and she found a sublease, and she was like, golly, why can't I keep this $10,000 deposit for the sublease? I could hire someone else. Well, I want to pull the thread on this. And so my co-founder and I talked, and we just started going back and forth on why this was a problem. From even a landlord perspective, even though a tenant is giving them something to hold on to as collateral, how it still doesn't make them whole from a risk perspective. That just didn't make sense to us.
It was a string worth pulling on to see where it would go. So on the side, Marissa and Josh began to explore the market for this new idea. And it wasn't long before they reached the same conclusion.
We kind of looked at each other, and for Tenovox, it's a 2-sided marketplace play that is going to take a long time to be profitable because you got to build that supply. And in turn, I had to raise millions and millions of dollars. I'd be in Silicon Valley, like every year raising. When we modeled out Otso, because what we do is we get paid every month that lease is going on, as long as the tenant doesn't default. And so there's this beautiful monthly recurring revenue compounding model that happens. I was getting into sales meetings just to talk about Otso a lot easier than I was with Tenovox. The market is telling us something, and we can make money and be profitable way faster to fund what we want to build with Tenovox. Perhaps this just could be a really, really good additive solution, but also maybe a backup plan.
They listened to the market and pivoted. Monetizing Tenovox was an uphill battle, but Otso was based on direct feedback that the market was pointing them toward over and over again. Pivoting from one company to another hasn't been easy, but it's been possible because Marissa has had a great co-founder to lean on through all the ups and downs.
It's super special because we went into the relationship with just an utmost amount of respect for each other already. Although working together on a professional level is different, very different. It's like a marriage. And being able to overcome the gender biases between the two of us that we've had to work out, and having a partner, especially as a woman founder, who is just all about female empowerment and mindful of his presence in a room when I'm in a room, and when he talks, how loud he talks or how much he talks, the importance of listening. Now it's to the point where we finish each other's sentences. We have very different talents and skill sets that we bring to the table. And that's what I encourage people is whoever your founder is, make sure it's someone that has skill sets you don't have. Lesson learned from my first company, I mentioned that my West Point classmate and I started that together. And I think part of it was we thought exactly the same. We operated exactly the same. But I think from that, I realized you need to diversify.
Josh and Marissa have navigated through the maze of ideas, faced challenges, and found a way to be successful. What keeps them motivated every day is their burning passion for solving the real estate problems facing the market and the people they are able to help by doing so.
I think, if anything, the motivation is even higher now because our program helps businesses during this crisis save essential cash. They need it more than ever, obviously, while at the same time enhancing coverage for landlords who are worried about defaults left and right. And how do they assess tenant financials at all?
The world is evolving and changing right in front of us, and the work Marissa does is changing with it. Up next for Otso is to continue to build out its sales pipeline and then scale that success across the country. It's a new challenge and one that she is excited to take on.
When I talk to people, it's always like, why do you do what you do? I talked about not having salary, and so there's an opportunity cost. But I look back and what I learn even in a year, what I learn in a couple months, and how much I grow is amazing. And it happens in such a bigger way, I think, with what I'm doing. And the roller coaster ride, albeit the importance of staying calm and steady through not only the lows, which I think I've gotten better at with my experience, but I didn't realize like how important with the highs it is to continue to stay steady.
Tony Robbins once said, quote, "Every problem is a gift. Without problems, we would not grow." This quote is brought to life beautifully through Marissa's story. Had there not been a struggle with Tenovox, it's possible that Marissa could have missed the signs that pointed her toward building Otso. Marissa could have given up on Tenovox or even threw in the towel on entrepreneurship altogether. After all, she'd been down this winding and unpredictable road a few times before and knew what was at stake. But instead, she saw opportunity in struggle and knew that placing one big bet on the right market would eventually pay off. She didn't know when the perfect hand would be dealt, but she kept playing through the bad hands, knowing that the one that would change the game was right around the corner. And when it did come, she was ready for it.
Succeeding as a startup, solo founder, or any small business is an uphill battle. It takes the right mindset and the right tools. That's why we're thrilled to partner with Salesforce Essentials to bring you the journey. Managing one podcast, let alone a whole media studio, is a challenge to say the least. But Essentials makes it easy to maintain relationships and grow our business. With Essentials, your startup has access to the same CRM driving insights and results for the most successful companies in the world. Use unrivaled Salesforce technology to track customers, sales, emails, and more. You'll know where your business is and where it's headed as you chart the path for your journey. We love using Essentials, and we know you will too. Go to getessentials.com/thejourney to start your free 90-day trial today.